10 historical events you've been getting all wrong. History is filled with events that we think we know, but in reality, much of what we've learned has been oversimplified, misrepresented, or just plain wrong. From the misunderstandings about pivotal moments to the deliberate myths that have taken root over time, the true stories behind some of history's most iconic events are often far more nuanced and surprising. Let's dive deeper into 10 moments in history that didn't unfold quite like you might think. Number 1. The Suffragette Movement, women divided on women's rights. The Suffragette Movement is often remembered as a united front of women demanding equal rights, but the reality was much more divided. While many women championed suffrage, others actively fought against it. The opposition wasn't just from misogynistic men who thought politics were too complex for women. Many anti-suffragists, such as novelist Mary Ward, playwright Florence Bell, and Oxford principal Elizabeth Wordsworth, believed that men and women belonged to different spheres of influence and should remain so. They argued that women already had significant social influence without the vote, and that involving them in politics, particularly on issues like military and financial policies, would be impractical and unnecessary. In the UK, the Women's National Anti-Suffrage League, which formed in 1908, grew to over 100 branches before merging with a similar men's group. This alliance demonstrates how many women were, surprisingly, against their own enfranchisement. Number 2. The Emancipation Proclamation, a strategic move, not total freedom. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863, is often believed to have freed all enslaved people in the United States. However, the proclamation's reach was far more limited. It applied only to the Confederate states still in rebellion and notably excluded the border states loyal to the Union, as well as specific regions of the Confederacy already under Union control. Lincoln's carefully worded executive order aimed to weaken the Confederacy without pushing the Union's loyal border states away. While it did not immediately free a single slave, it did allow nearly 200,000 black men to join the Union Army, bolstering its forces significantly. The proclamation was also a powerful symbol of the Union's moral stance, which helped shift public opinion and solidify international support against the Confederacy. The true end of slavery across the United States, however, would not come until the 13th Amendment was ratified on December 6, 1865. Number 3. Northeast Blackout of 1965, no post-dark baby boom. On November 9, 1965, the northeastern United States and parts of Ontario, Canada, were plunged into darkness for over 12 hours, affecting more than 30 million people. It was widely believed, thanks to sensational media coverage, that the blackout led to a surge in births 9 months later. Articles in the New York Times in August 1966 suggested that there was a significant increase in birth rates, contributing to the myth that blackouts lead to baby booms. However, demographic research later debunked this claim, revealing that birth rates during that period were no higher than normal, and in fact, were slightly lower than in previous years. Sociological studies pointed out that the blackout started around 5 p.m., meaning many people were stuck in traffic, stranded at work, or otherwise not in a situation conducive to romance. Furthermore, the use of contraception and other factors made it unlikely that a brief power outage would result in a significant spike in births. Number 4. Pocahontas, a story rewritten by history and Hollywood. The real Pocahontas, Matoka, bears little resemblance to the romanticized Disney version. At the time of her famous encounter with John Smith, she was only around 10 or 11 years old, not an adult woman involved in a love story. The widely known story of Pocahontas saving Smith's life by placing her head over his, told solely by Smith himself, is also highly questionable. He made no mention of it in his earlier writings, and historians suspect he fabricated the story years later to gain attention. Moreover, the narrative omits the darker aspects of her life. Pocahontas was captured by the English in 1613, held hostage for over a year, and later married to John Rolfe, with whom she had a son. She died in England in 1617, at around 21 years old, far from the idealized ending of Disney's tale. Number 5. The Bridge on the River Quai, a misplaced monument. The story of the bridge on the River Quai, popularized by the Oscar-winning film, is full of inaccuracies. The movie depicts the harrowing experience of Allied prisoners of war, POWs, forced by the Japanese to build a railway bridge over the river Quai in Thailand. But the truth is that there was never a bridge on the river Quai until after the film's release. The actual river was the Mekong, which was later renamed Quai to satisfy the surge of tourists misled by the film's success. The movie's portrayal of the British commander, Colonel Nicholson, who is depicted as collaborating with the Japanese due to pride and stubbornness, is also inaccurate. In reality, the senior Allied officer, Philip Toosey, resisted cooperation with the Japanese at every turn, worked to sabotage the bridge's construction, and fought to protect his men from mistreatment. Number 6. The Spirit of '76, Fading Patriotism and Rising Conscription. The spirit of '76 is often evoked as a symbol of American resolve and unity during the Revolutionary War, but this enthusiasm did not last long. Early in the conflict, volunteer enlistment rates soared, and thousands of men joined the fight against the British. However, by 1776, George Washington was already concerned about the sustainability of a volunteer army. The initial rush of volunteers quickly faded as the realities of war set in. By 1778, most states were forced to implement conscription laws to maintain their military ranks, and financial bounties became necessary to entice enlistment. That same year, Congress reversed its ban on black men serving in the army to bolster its dwindling forces. The reality was far less romantic than the imagery of a united citizenry fighting for freedom. Number 7. Rosa Parks, the civil rights strategist, not just a tired seamstress. Rosa Parks is often portrayed as a weary seamstress who spontaneously refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger on December 1, 1955, igniting the Montgomery bus boycott and a larger civil rights movement. However, Parks was not a naive woman acting on impulse. By the time of her arrest, she had been a longtime activist with the NAACP and had served as the secretary to E.D. Nixon, the local chapter leader. Her action on that day was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was a carefully planned move in coordination with local activists to challenge bus segregation laws. Notably, Parks was not the first to resist. 9 months earlier, 15-year-old Claudette Colden had also refused to give up her bus seat, but the NAACP decided that her circumstances, Colden was unmarried and pregnant, were not ideal for the test case they needed. Parks, by contrast, was seen as a more sympathetic figure who could galvanize the movement. Number 8. The Alamo, a Battle of Myths. The Battle of the Alamo has become a symbol of Texan independence, celebrated as a heroic stand against overwhelming odds. However, many aspects of the story have been distorted or omitted. One significant factor driving the Texas Revolution was Mexico's abolitionist stance on slavery, which conflicted with the interests of slave-owning settlers in Texas. Despite the popular belief that no Texan defenders survived, about 20 non-combatants, including women, children, and the enslaved person Joe, owned by William B. Travis, were spared. The fate of the legendary Davy Crockett, often depicted as dying heroically in combat, remains contested. Some sources suggest he was captured and executed, while others claim he surrendered. Number 9. The Great Escape, the Hollywood version versus reality. The Great Escape, immortalized by the 1963 film starring Steve McQueen, took considerable liberties with the actual events it depicted. The daring escape from Stalag Luft III, a German POW camp, was indeed a real event, but the Americans portrayed in the movie, including McQueen's character, were not involved. In fact, all American POWs had been transferred out of the camp before the escape took place. The famous motorcycle chase scene, one of the film's most memorable moments, was pure fiction, added at McQueen's request to give him more screen time. Of the 76 escapees, only 3 Norwegian and Dutch prisoners managed to reach freedom. Number 10. Orson Welles' The War of the Worlds, A Panic That Wasn't. Orson Welles' 1938 radio adaptation of The War of the Worlds is frequently credited with causing mass hysteria across the United States. The reality, however, is far less dramatic. The notion of widespread panic was largely a myth perpetuated by newspapers, which saw radio as a competitor and seized on the opportunity to discredit it. In truth, very few people were actually listening to the broadcast. According to the C.E. Hooper ratings, only about 2% of the American population tuned in, and none of them reported believing it to be a real news event. Additionally, CBS aired disclaimers before, during, and after the show, making it clear that the program was a work of fiction.